The day after the generous gesture of the girl offering her sandwich to a homeless man, a knock on the door interrupted her father's work routine. When he opened the door, he found himself face to face with two police officers. Their serious expressions made his heart race with immediate surprise and concern. What could be happening? He thought. Is this the house of the parents of a girl named Louise? One of the officers asked, looking at him with a serious gaze. Then something completely unexpected happened. Louise, an adorable little girl, passed by a charming park every day in the car with her father on the way to school. Louise's big, curious eyes always observed everything around her, capturing every detail of the world passing by the car window. One detail in particular always caught her attention. A thin, tired-looking man who always sat on the same bench under the fragile shade of a tree. The man wore tattered clothes, and his shoulders were always slightly hunched, as if carrying the weight of the world. His face, marked by time and adversity, displayed a silent expression of melancholy that never went unnoticed by Louise. With the typical innocence of a child, Louise saw this man and said to her father, "He is sad. Where is his mommy?" Feeling the same sensitivity as his daughter, the father abruptly replied, "He's probably just a drunk beggar." Despite her father's response, Louise continued to worry about the man, her little heart tightening every time they passed by the park. Louise was an extremely loving child, a true rare gem that enchanted everyone around her with her innate empathy. From an early age, she demonstrated a unique ability to understand and share the feelings of others. Her teacher always told her mother how Louise would run to help her classmates, offering a comforting hug or a kind word to console those who were sad. Her kindness and sensitivity stood out in such a way that everyone around her knew she was truly special, radiating a light that brightened even the darkest days. The girl felt sad seeing the man alone on the bench, but then continued on her way to school, where she distracted herself with her games and learning. On a specific day, this time under the care of her grandmother, Kit, holding hands with her, Louise felt the comforting warmth of her grandmother's presence. Kit was a woman with a generous heart, known for her kindness and unconditional love for her family. Her eyes shone with a gentleness that radiated comfort and security to Louise. When Louise and her grandmother, Kit, passed by the man in the small park, whose presence was already familiar to the young girl, a feeling of compassion immediately filled Louise's heart. As always, she remembered how she had begged her father to help that man, to no avail. Unlike her father's indifference, Louise shared her thoughts with her grandmother, confiding that the man seemed sad and hungry. Touched by her granddaughter's sincere concern, Kit couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and sadness. She admired Louise's sensitivity, so pure and compassionate, and at the same time, she felt saddened for never having had the same empathetic view towards people outside her family. Without hesitation, Louise asked her grandmother if she could share her sandwich with the man in the park. The girl's request filled Kit's heart with pride and tenderness. She saw in it a lesson of humanity from her granddaughter, a lesson she herself could learn. With a loving smile, Kit handed the meal to the beggar, who thanked her kindly. This simple act, inspired by Louise's innocence and compassion, left a deep mark on her grandmother's heart, reminding her of the importance of looking beyond oneself and extending a hand to those in need. As Kit accompanied Louise to school that day, she had no idea of the impact this simple act of charity could have. Little did she know that this act of kindness, inspired by Louise's compassion, would trigger a series of events that would change lives in unexpected ways. The grandmother dropped her granddaughter off at school, and later that same day, she told Louise's parents how beautiful and sweet the girl's gesture was in giving her own lunch to someone in need. With a tender smile, she said, "You raised my granddaughter well. She is like this because of what she sees at home." Louise's parents exchanged a shy smile, aware that they themselves had never given any money or done anything to help the needy. This generosity was, in fact, an innate quality in Louise, a great lesson for the elders. Her father Paolo felt uncomfortable with the praise. He expressed his concern, stating that what Kit had allowed was extremely dangerous because he didn't know who that man was and could have put Louise in danger. He said in disapproval, "That man has been there for months. He must be just a vagabond, someone who doesn't want to work." And as Paolo mentioned, no one there really knew who this man was. The next morning, the house was immersed in the usual morning routine. Louise's mother left for work while Paolo prepared to take his daughter to school. It was a typical scene. Breakfast was devoured quickly, backpacks were checked, and the clock was always against them. After dropping Louise off at school, Paolo returned home, ready to start his workday. As he walked towards the car, his mind was already occupied with the tasks and commitments awaiting him. He had spent a few hours at home immersed in the day's demands when he was suddenly interrupted by a knock on the door. Opening it, he found himself face to face with two police officers with serious expressions. "Is this the home of the parents of a girl named Louise?" one of the officers asked, mentioning the name of her preschool. Paolo paled, a shiver running down his spine. In a moment of desperation, he shouted, "Yes, I'm her father." "What happened to Louise?" The officers asked him to calm down, explaining that it was not about Louise's safety. Then one of the officers asked, "Was she the little girl who helped a man in the park yesterday?" "Did you know anything about this?" Paolo, still trying to process the sudden appearance of the officers, replied, "Yes, she gave lunch to a man in the park." "But why are you here? Did he do something to my daughter?" The older officer slowly shook his head, his face softening a bit. "No, sir. Actually, we're here because that man is a missing person. He has a family that has been looking for him for months. Your daughter might have been the first person to make contact with him since then. He's been talking about your daughter, and now his sister wants to thank her." Paolo remained perplexed. The idea that this man whom he had always despised could have a more complex story left him bewildered. The officer explained that after Louise's gesture, her teacher, CIA, decided to take action. CIA, always attentive to Louise, who spoke about her concerns for the man in the park, was moved by her young student's level of empathy. Teacher CIA had always wanted to help someone or do some good, but she had never had the courage or time. Life was just too busy. Knowing that Louise had done something so simple and pure, she felt compelled to act. CIA went to the park and offered help to the man who seemed sad and disoriented. Talking with him, Claire discovered that he had a very sad life story and that he had a family. She decided to contact the police to find out more about his whereabouts. That's when they discovered that his sister had been looking for him for months. Paolo could hardly believe what he was hearing. The police officer told him that Anna would be at the station and asked if he would like to come later so she could thank him personally. Attending to her request, Paolo agreed. Later, he, his wife, and Louise went to the station's parking lot to meet Anna. It was an unusual but moving moment. Anna, with a trembling voice, said, "I have no words to express my gratitude for what your daughter did. She not only fed my brother, but also gave him a spark of hope. I thought I had lost him forever." Louise, holding her mother's hand, looked at Anna with curiosity. Anna knelt to be at eye level with Louise and said with tears in her eyes, "You have a very big heart, my dear. You helped save my brother. He is now in a clinic receiving the care he needs." That afternoon turned into an exchange of stories and emotions. Anna told them that her brother, Marcel, had been a successful businessman. But after the tragic death of his wife and daughter in a car accident, he sank into a deep depression that culminated in his life on the streets. Marcel knew that his sister was looking for him, but was apathetic, with no will to live, trapped in a cycle of despair and misery. It seemed impossible to escape that pit. However, when Louise offered him a sandwich with such care, something changed inside him. This simple gesture reminded him of his own daughter and how she would want to see him well and living a dignified life. This moment of tenderness deeply touched his heart. When Lou's teacher, Claire, offered him help, Marcel realized it might be time to change his life. He decided to accept the outstretched hand and seek a new direction, inspired by the innocent kindness of a girl and Claire's sincere help. Lou's parents, upon learning everything, felt a mix of shame and redemption. They offered financial help to Anna to ensure Marcel received the best possible care. Claire also offered her time and support. Louise continued her routine in the following days, but with a new light in her eyes. She did not fully understand the complexity of what had happened, but she knew she had done something good. All those involved in this story were deeply transformed by the experience. They began to see people with more humanity and offered help whenever possible. After months of treatment, Marcel began to recover. He never forgot the kindness of a little girl who, with a simple sandwich, initiated his journey back to life. He could finally move forward, seeking to live in the best possible way. He learned to give new meaning to his nostalgia and sadness and discovered how to deal with the pain step by step. Lou's family became even closer after this event. The small park became a place of special significance for them. They frequented it often, not only to remember how everything started, but also to continue the legacy of kindness that Louise had initiated. Kit, the grandmother, also became more involved in acts of charity inspired by her granddaughter's attitude. Lou, with her innate kindness, not only changed the life of one man, but also deeply touched the hearts of everyone around her. She showed that often the smallest gestures have the greatest impact. And so she grew up, always guided by the light of empathy and love, teaching everyone that true wealth lies in how we treat others. Enjoying stories like this? Follow us, like the video, and share.